One. Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, wherever you find a way to watch or listen to this podcast. Is me, Omar from Hardware, back with a friend of the podcast, Mike Terril, my fellow colleague at redshirtsports.xyz. And we're here to talk about really a hot button topic in FCS football right now in terms of realignment. Really, the only news in realignment right now. Happening in the OVC, the Ohio Valley Conference and Big South Alliance. And we're just gonna look at this what the season lays ahead for the Ohio Valley Conference and Big South Alliance as well. So Mike, thanks for joining. How's everything going?
It's going good, Omar. Going real good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Any day, we get to talk about football, and any day it's a great day, and any day closer to the kickoff of the season. I'm so excited I can't speak. Any day closer to the season's kickoff is an amazing day as well, as we're less than 2 weeks away from week zero and the FCS kickoff and whatnot. So I'm doing phenomenal. The wait's almost over.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm excited too, especially with with the Big South and OVC Alliance, which is the Big South OVC Association now. It's going to be it's going to be new and exciting to see where this goes. I believe the with the Big South and the OVC, the talent level is extremely even across the board. So there should be some really good football.
Yeah, I agree completely. And like you said, it's going to be unique. It's going to be different. And some of these matchups you're going to see just once and they'll be gone forever, which leads us to our first topic. The Bryant Bulldogs out in Smithfield, Rhode Island have left. They announced that they're leaving the Big South OBC Alliance after the season, joining the Colonial Athletic Conference, sorry, not Colonial, the Coastal Athletic Association. It's going to take some time getting used to saying that. But they're joining the Coastal Athletic Association in football only, but this brings the alliance down to 9 members, or actually 10 members, as Western Illinois comes back, which we talked about a couple months ago. So they'll have 10
Right.
members. It's all the same. It's essentially a swap out. But Mike, I want to know your thoughts on how whether this benefits the alliance, whether this hurts the alliance. I just want to know your thoughts on the move.
Oh boy, it's a good question. Um, Me personally, I don't think it hurts the alliance. I really honestly don't. Now, my opinion may be a little bit different if Western wasn't joining the conference, uh, wasn't joining the OVC conference in 2024. Uh, because I think anytime you have a conference that has an odd number, whether it be 7, 9, 11, there's just something about the scheduling and things in an odd numbered conference that I don't like, and I think there's a lot of benefit for Bryant, uh, and I don't believe anybody that is a true fan of FCS and a true fan of Bryant or the Big South or OVC. I don't think anybody could truly blame Bryant for the move into the CAA. For one, they're going to pick up in-state rival Rhode Island. For two, it's they're putting themselves in a better position to for financially, as far as regionality, uh, and it just makes sense. Uh, you know, versus what's going on in the FBS, this actually makes sense to realign and have Bryant move into the CAA. So really, I honestly don't see any way that it's going to adversely affect the association. Uh, I think actually it's good for it. Uh, the only thing is now is it kind of puts Robert Morris in question. But I it's media day this year or media day, but you know, kind of the impression that I have, people I've talked to, and things that I've articles that I've read, and other podcasts that I've seen, um, and just going and looking at their website, Robert Morris's website. I think they're perfectly content with where they're at. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. So, I mean, definitely what you said for Bryant really strikes. I really like it. Makes a lot of sense because it's really hard. I can imagine how hard it was to get excited about these matchups, having teams from Missouri, from Illinois, from Tennessee coming to town, teams that you really don't really share much with culturally. But now being in the Coastal Athletic Association, like you said, the Rhode Island game is a conference game. There'll actually be actual stakes in store for that game. Actually, the actual conference and playoff implications with that game. So that definitely is a win for the Bryant fan base as well. And then also too, like you also have former rivals in Albany, former NEC. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of overlap with the Albany and Bryant for a year or two in the NEC, but you get natural rivals as well, and that is just so huge for Bryant to have. So no hard feelings against Bryant in this alliance, but it was like a forced marriage. It was like an arranged marriage. Was forced to work out, and now they're out. And I think going on to Robert Morris, I would agree that I think they're happy where they're at because that's a basketball school and of course, they're not a basketball school on the level of like Kentucky or Duke or anything, but they have a proud basketball tradition. I still remember like years back when they beat Kentucky in the first round of the NIT. They have a couple of NCAA tournament appearances, and they wouldn't have made the move from the NEC to the Horizon League. They wouldn't have made that move if they didn't care about basketball more than they cared about football. That's not to say they don't care, but I think right now, I think the geography of the alliance, it's not bad at all. I mean, Robert Morris is already making trips to Indiana. I don't know if they're making trips to Illinois in the Horizon League, but they're making trips to Indiana already as it is. They're making trips to Michigan in basketball too. So it's not unnatural to them. So I think it definitely helps their long-term viability in the alliance too, especially with it at 10 teams. Because scheduling, like you said, scheduling with 10 teams is difficult, especially now that there's like no independence really in FCS football. So I definitely agree with that. I think this helps the long-term stability of the alliance as well. I just kind of feel bad for the Carolina schools, for Charleston Southern and Gardner Webb, because this isn't the best place for them, but travel is not bad at all to the Tennessee schools. It really isn't.
no, that that's not a long bus trip at all for them to even come up to Charleston. And Western's not going to be that much of an extension to their travel time. Um, it'd be if they were in the Missouri Valley, that I could see where that would definitely be a hindrance. But as far as the Big South and OVC, there's really nothing there. There actually Tennessee is probably Tennessee State, UGM, Tennessee Tech are probably uh, located and situated the best of anybody in the association as far as travel, because it's pretty much equal travel to anywhere they need to travel. Uh, I mean, there's a little bit of a distance variation, but not as much as Bryant had, and probably not as much as Robert Morris. But I don't think I really haven't seen anything where they have had any difficulties with, or actual feelings about the travel. I haven't seen anything where they've uh, stated any difficulties in uh, organizing and being able to travel from Pennsylvania to any of the other schools. So I do. I think Robert Morris will probably stay. I I can't foresee anything. Um, like you said, they are a basketball school, and they really, I believe they travel more basketball. So football, um, they're going to travel. What maybe I haven't looked at their schedule. I'd have to look at their schedule to see how much travel they actually have this season. I know that they have to come to SEMO, uh, which it really that's not that much of a distance. What 10-hour bus trip probably for them. Maybe a 12, yeah, probably about a 10-hour bus trip, maybe 10.5 hours. So that's really not that long distance for that for them there. Um, Bryant, on the other hand, that's to come to SEMO. Of course, they play SEMO at Bryant, so SEMO is going to have to figure out how they're going to travel to Bryant. I would say that that's definitely probably going to be one that's going to fly to, or at least consider flying, because that's probably close to a 12, 14-hour bus trip. I can't see Tom SEMO wanting his players on a bus for 14, 15 hours to play a ball game. I think he'd want to if he can swing it and get it through administration. I think he'd want to take it down to a 2-hour flight and be fresh, especially uh, they play SEMO with Bryant. They'll match up the last regular season game of the year. So that's going to be an important game. That's going to be an important game for SEMO. And looking at it, that could be a very important game for Bryant too. Um, we'll kind of get into some of the matchups later on, but as going to get myself back into where we're at as far as this realignment, and back to Bryant. Uh, as I stated, I honestly I can't see anybody that would have any uh, adverse reaction to Bryant leaving the Big South, because I haven't heard this, so this is strictly my own opinion. But the more I've researched it, the more I've looked, I really don't think Bryant came to the Big South uh, for the long term. And I believe that there was probably an understanding at some point that when they came to the Big South, it, well, they came to the Big South, I believe, what, last year? I'm
Yes, it
correct.
was last year. Yep.
Um, so I'm sure, like I said, I can't say, you know, with any certainty, because I haven't confirmed any of that conversation, but um, I would I'd almost bet that the former commissioner uh, calendar for the Big South, I'm sure that he discussed it, and I would imagine that Bryant probably come in uh, with the understanding that, hey, this is until we can find we need to do something regionally, but right now this is the only conference that's available for us. At the time. So, I think they wanted to move into the Big South because the Big South was a competitive conference when they came in and looked like it was going to be. And then all of a sudden, there was a mass exodus out of the Big South. Uh, really, with That's the only thing I don't like to see about Bryant. That's the only adverse reaction that I do have to Bryant leaving is it weakens the Big South individually because now that brings them down to what, three teams
Yep,
in that
just three.
three football teams in that conference. We talked about this a couple months ago. Uh, what the long term arrangement would probably be between the two in the association, and I think this kind of reconfirms the fact that they'll play this term out and see how see what the effects were. But I believe I think that it's probably going to be something even longer than that now, um, because I'm hoping that Commissioner Montgomery, now that she's getting her feet wet in the Big South, I'm hoping that I'm hoping that she's working uh, hard to find maybe one or two teams to come into to join the Big South. I hope that's one of the things on her agenda for uh, because I hate to see the Big South weaken because I don't want to see them become the Pac-10 of the FCS.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. I mean, it is looking that way. Especially since FBS aspirations poached a lot of schools from the Big South to the ASUN. Which I mean, that experiment's not looking so great right now. But overall, like I mean, I do agree that I don't think there's, like you said, much adverse reactions to Bryant leaving the Big South, which I wanted to open this up to you with in my article with the Big South OVC at 10 members now, and even 10 members. A way that they can organize the schedule better would be either divisions with 5 teams apiece. I think a north-south split is the best way to go. Or having three guaranteed opponents per year and then shaping the schedule from there. So I want to know your thoughts on that, Mike.
Hmm. Well, boy, I got to put some thought into that. I understand what you're saying. The alliance with the North Division, the South Division. Uh, I would really, really, really be interested to see. I think before I could really form an opinion of that, I would have to see a schedule and see how the schedule was formulated, and see what it involved. Um, and I mean, I'm not trying to sidestep your question. The only thing is that's something that I'd have to research. I'd really have to sit down and look into. Um, I like, I kind of like the idea of the North and South divisions. Um, Now I have one question for you. Um, I did read your article. Of course, my memory's not what it used to be, but one question I have is, how do you believe they would schedule that? Would I mean, you would have 5 and 5, obviously. My only question is, how are how would a conference champion actually be crowned at the end of the season there? I mean, do you schedule it to where before the uh, before the selection committee meets, where you go through the schedule? The very last game on the schedule would be a championship game between the two divisions, and you would have a clear and obvious winner. that would get the automatic qualifier. That's the only thing I can think that me personally, that's one place where I see that the divisions would uh, literally be a benefit, especially after the fiasco last season in the OVC. Um, because nothing, um, nothing pisses me off anymore than what they did last year. There's no way that a team's advancement into the playoffs should have come down to a coin toss. You know that, uh, you know, probably going to get me in trouble with the OVC by saying that. But I I didn't like the look. I'll put it that way. I just did not like the way it looked nationally, um, because I kind of think it put a black eye on the OVC. If they would have just come out and said, okay, hey, SEMO had the best record, SEMO wins. SEMO's the champion. I realized that UTM was 5-0 in the conference. All right, but if you have a tie within the conference, then they should have went, and instead of a coin toss, it should have been decided by the overall record. And I think you save a little bit of grace that way. Uh, I really did. I've also looked at I have it now. I pulled up your graphic, your pods. Uh, I like that. I mean, I like the way you kind of got it laid out. Uh, because I believe everybody has gotten in FBS. They're really leaning and headed away from divisions. The Big Ten, this is the last year I have in the East and West. They're going to go to an overall uh, schedule schedule structure, and number one and number two will meet in the championship game, which is kind of interesting there, is because now you have a very good chance that it's going to be Michigan and Ohio State back to back games. You know, uh, I guess if you're a fan of Michigan and Ohio State, you kind of think, well, that'd be great. I don't know how I don't know how all that'd be received, but overall, I do. I like the idea of having the number one and number twos meet. Um, and I'm a fan of the Big Ten. I've been a fan of the University of Illinois, uh, and I've been a fan of Brett Bielema since he's been there. But I firmly believe that the two best teams in the Big Ten last year did not play in the championship game. Uh, and I think sometimes when you have divisions and if you have a championship game, the weaker team sometimes ends up in that championship game, and it's not divided. It's not. Uh, it's not. Oh boy. I apologize for lost words, but I just believe it's not decided um, respectively at the end of the season when you have the winner of one division, the winner of the other division meet. Because sometimes I think the stronger teams, there might be just a strong, actually a stronger team within the same division that deserves a chance at the championship. Uh, and that's what I'm a fan of. Is I really want to see FCS the same way, but I want to see when it comes to the champions, I want to see the strongest team crowned champion. And I understand the playoffs and everything in FCS, and this has been one of my complaints over the years. And I've gotten bashed on it, but that's another thing. I'm firmly I firmly believe that conferences should have championship games. I really do. I feel that way in basketball and I feel that way in football. I really like that championship game. Um, that's something be interested to hear what you think of that. But I really do. I would really like to see a championship game before that selection. I don't know how it would work out. Like I said, I haven't sat down and done the math. Uh, but that one game, I think every conference could have one open schedule or one open day in the schedule before the selection. They could have one open day for a championship. And I think we constantly see other thing. Um, you hear all the time in FBS, and then you hear it in FCS. You hear the word exposure. Uh, to me, when it comes to uh, marketing and uh, advertising, there's nothing that sells viewership more than championship. Because even the novice fan, when they see championship, chances are they're going to tune over and at least take a peek and maybe get caught into a really good game and stay. And I consistently hear from fans in the OVC, um, a couple new acquaintances that I've met that are fans in the Big South. Um, I've constantly that's the one thing that I've constantly heard is exposure. Um, and now, see, I got off on a big winded thing here, but this goes back to Bryant moving into the CAA. Another thing there is, I think, with the regionality, that also increases their exposure because you're going to the biggest conference in FCS, and you're going to play some really good teams, high caliber teams. There's going to be some high caliber uh, competition. High caliber competition breeds recruiting. The better the teams you play, the better recruits you draw. And the other thing is too, going into a conference like that, the word's exposure. The more exposure you get, the more recruits want to come and play for you. So uh, that's in a roundabout way. I mean, I got off track here as far as your question with the divisions. Um, I guess the biggest thing I could say is I can see good and I can see good, the bad, ugly, and a division idea. You know, but I can also see the good and the bad in uh, just pairing up a straight association too. The only thing, like I said, the only thing I think is I don't want to see a black eye put back, especially after last season. I don't want to see a black eye put back on the association because I think this association may draw some eyes and possibly a little bit of exposure. So I don't want to run that exposure and not have a clear cut champion at the end of the year. I believe hopefully when they worked out this association, hopefully there was some clarity in how they were going to decide a champion at the end of the year to get the automatic qualifier. And the other thing is too, I don't I don't think it's fair that no one out of the OVC UTM, shout out to Jason Simpson. Hopefully he'll watch this, but I honestly believe that UTM should have got an at large out of the OVC last year. And it's my bad, and I'll admit it. I did not really follow the Big South that much until uh, this season. Uh, and that was honestly, on me. I've done a deep dive. I've started watching. I've watched several games from last season now. Um, but Gardner Webb, uh, that's a phenomenal program. But when you go undefeated in that, when you go undefeated in your conference, but you finish 6-6 at the end of the season, uh, 5-6, I guess, at the end of the season, because they did win one playoff game. But um, well, no, they went 6-6 at the end of the season, I believe. Anyway, um, when you have that kind of a record of non-conference opponents, uh, there too, I in this association, I'm interested to see because that it's hard to get an automatic qualifier when you don't bode well with and you don't get your wins against the out of conference opponents as well. And they Gardner Webb got a well deserved trip to the playoffs last year, but UTM I believe would have been a better team. And they didn't even get it. They didn't get an at large, and Gardner Webb got an automatic qualifier because they won the conference, obviously. But there's too much of that throughout the FCS. Now, I think what in 2024 they expand the playoffs. Yeah, the seeding is what I mean. They're not adding teams, but they're adding seeding, and I think that'll help a little bit. Uh, hmm, kind of, I I don't what did what I say make any sense about the about your question with the divisions? I guess kind of get back to that since I got off topic.
Yeah, no, it's no problem. Yeah, I mean it does make sense. I think a divisional format like I think I saw something yesterday where the CAA used to use divisions, but there was no championship game. It was more of a way to organize the schedule. So if it was something like that, where I can see the OVC playing 8 conference games a year, which would be 4 divisionals, 4 non-divisionals, and so you leave out the geographic outlier relative to you. I think it's a pretty organized way to do things. So, but also the pods too. So the pods too make a lot of sense. It's just a way of I think either way, I just think at the end of the line, at the end of the day, you need organization when you're forming a schedule. When you have such I mean, now it's not going to be as large a geographic footprint, but when we have a large geographic footprint, you need organization. So that's just key. Whether it's pods or divisions, I don't really care which one. But I really feel like either one is a good way to organize things. Um, so yeah, no, I mean I totally agree. I think moving on to just I guess what's gonna happen on the field this year. For the OVC Big South. I guess one question I want to lead off with. I'm sure like a lot of bystanders and not bystanders, but outsiders, Walter Payton voters are wondering which running back will have the better year this year in the OVC Big South. Will it be Geno Hess or Nari Gaither? Nari Gaither, of course, was riddled by injuries last year, but finished the year strong for the running Bulldogs. And Geno Hess, the elder statesman of the OVC in terms of running backs, just keeps on going in his sixth year, had over 1,600 yards. So, Mike, I want to know your thoughts. Which running back has the better year in the OVC?
Well, if you would have asked me that question yesterday, I would have told you Geno Hess with hands down. Um, and I think you asked me that question today. I honestly do believe that Casino has a strong team, um, and they're. I believe they're going to be impressive for a second season. I think they're actually going to be a little bit stronger this season. Um, they're they're really they're bringing in or bringing back a lot of experience. They have 43 returning linemen or 43 returning lettermen. Excuse me. I'll learn to talk. Well, by the time I'm 65, um, they have 17 returning starters on offense, or overall 17 returning starters. Excuse me. There's, like I said, I believe that their strong side is going to be defense this season. As far as Geno Hess goes, um, that is really, really, really going to depend, I believe, on how quickly Simo's offensive line uh, can gel. They're relatively a new offensive line. They so they're going to need to get their work in. Um, the reports out of camp right now because they're really doing well, and coming a long way as far as their uh, development. The spid that I mean, and I looked at, we were just discussing this before we went on, um, and I hope no, but I hope no one, no player or coach destroys me, but I'm absolutely horrific when it comes to pronouncing some of the players' names. Uh, boy, I mean, I can butcher a name in nothing flat. Um, but Simo has Zach Gig returning. Gig, he's the Remington Award winner for most outstanding line center in FCS. So there, you have some senior leadership on the line, and then of course they have Kobe. Love this name, Six Killer, coming back right next to him as a guard. I believe he's a right guard. So here again, I stretched, but this is where I think the experience of Geno in the backfield, um, and see how things develop on the line. but through the middle, right in the A gap, I think you're that's gonna be your strongest part of the line, and I that's kind of gonna be an area where Gino's gonna excel. Um, he's low to the ground, low center of gravity. Uh, he's hard to arm tackle. Um, he's very hard to arm tackle, actually. But I think also Neil. Um, let's see here. And I'm absolutely horrible at pronouncing uh, running back for Gardner Webb's name, so I don't want to butcher it. So I'll go with his last name and Gaither. Um, he's one. I as I said before, I admit I really didn't see that much, but I have watched. I have went back and watched some tape. Uh, he runs well. I like his shiftiness. I really do. I really like the way he runs. I believe he's got some deceptive speed when he gets in the open field. He's got some strength and power, obviously. Um, I uh, I just I'm not. I guess I'm torn between the two. Um, but really, uh, Nari. I'll try to keep that. But I believe that he's a smaller back. He's more of a he's going to run outside. He run outside the tackles more. Uh, and I just believe that if you've got a good inside running game, it just seems like that opens up more possibilities for that busted long runs, which Gino is known for. He does bust some long runs. I really honestly think just overall performance wise, I believe Gino's is the better back. No disrespect, no disrespect to Nara at all, because I do believe that he's a quality back. My personal opinion of Gino is I believe he's an NFL back. Uh, I'm not quite as certain that Nari is an caliber back. I believe he's a good FCS back, but I believe Gino Gino, I believe he would be successful in the FBS, and I believe he is an NFL caliber back. Um, so you ask, I guess now that it's taken 20 minutes to say this, but I honestly do. I think I'm going to have to just break down and say Gino is going to have a better season. Uh, but then again, it comes down to any given Saturday, barring injury. Injury is going to be the big outlier. Health is always the big outlier. We don't know what the health is going to be, but if both backs can stay healthy, really overall talent wise, I really do believe that Gino is going to be the uh, better back. I believe he'll be 2 or 3 steps ahead of Nari. And the other thing is too, I mean, they're both on the Walter Payton watch list as running backs. So, but I honestly think that Gino really does have a chance at the end of the year to be right back up there in that finalist talk, especially if he has anywhere close to as productive of a season as he had last year, because I feel that this year he'll be doing it with a little bit less talent up front. And if he has that, I think that's going to put him right up there in the discussion for the Walter Payton Award.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. So I think for me, I think Hess will have the better year. I think the thing with Gaither, I think it'll be interesting to see with the step up in competition playing against more OVC schools obviously than last year. Also a couple of FBS schools as well in East Carolina and Appalachian State. And of course Elon. Last year Nari Gaither did not play in the Elon game. I'm interested to see how he does this year against the Phoenix this year in week 2. So I do think there is a step in competition. And I think with that, with more Big South teams being added to the schedule for on the case of, excuse me, of Hess, I think Hess will thrive with that. So it'll be an interesting dynamic to see for sure. I mean, because it is a step in competition. Both backs are amazing. I'm excited to see who ends up with a better year for sure. But I do think that is a leading storyline in the OVC this year, from a player perspective as well, or from a player perspective. Going on to some matchups, what are some matchups that you're looking forward to, Mike, this year in the OVC Big South?
Oh boy. Um, Actually, there's several matchups that I'm really looking forward to to seeing. Um, One is not an it's not an interconference matchup. It's an FBS FCS matchup. Uh, Only the biggest reason that I mention this is uh, I'm really excited to see how Tennessee State fares in prime time at 3 p.m. on NBC and Peacock against Notre Dame. I'm that's To me that's a respectability game for the association. Um, do I do I believe that Tennessee could pull off the upset and beat Notre Dame? No, honestly, I don't. Um, but I believe also um, Eddie George could possibly. I believe he's going to have Tennessee State. He's going to have them prepared. Um, Tennessee State's kind of a they're kind of a funny team uh, because I absolutely love um, Eddie George. I really do. I respect him a lot for all of his accomplishments, and I think he's a good coach. Um, but uh, man, that's been an underachieving team. But it just has the talent that has went through, and this is just from a historical standpoint. The talent that has went through Tennessee State and the success that Tennessee State has had. Uh, Unfortunately, they just have a history of underachieving. Um, and Eddie took a step back last season after his second season. He took a step back. He was 4-7 overall, 2-3 in the conference. Um, so I believe he's going to have they're going to have to really show some improvement this They've got a running back themselves that I think is um, kind of worth keeping your eye on. Jalen Riles. He's a junior, a little undersized, but an FBS that kind of puts him in the mix for decent sized, I guess you could say. Um, and I'd really like to see Draylon Ellis. I'd like to see how Draylon Ellis performs against Notre Dame. Um, I because I feel like Draylon Draylon Ellis is one that has aggravated me through his career. Uh, because Tennessee State's kind of a second chance for him. And I'd really, really, really like to see him uh, perform at his maximum capabilities. I believe he can, and I'm hoping that Eddie can motivate him to come out. Um, so I'm looking forward to the Notre Dame Tennessee State game. Uh, I guess just because it's going to have lights and pageantry, and it's the first, you know, it's going to be a nationally televised game. It's Notre Dame. Plus, I want to see how Notre Dame comes out as well. Uh, I really, um, man, there's several games this season that I'm very interested in. Um, another game is an FBS FCS matchup, and that's going to be SEMO against Kansas State. Um, going into Manhattan, Kansas State. I didn't see the AP poll today. I believe they were 17th. I know they're ranked in the top 20. I know USA Today poll they were 17, I believe. But I believe that's another game that I really, really am interested to see how it plays out. Um, in my preview, I picked SEMO as possibly one of the upsets to watch. Um, because I think first game, uh, FCS overlooked. Here you're coming in with, SEMO's coming in with a veteran quarterback, um, two veteran wide receivers. Here again, Geno Hess. They're coming in with a lot of talent, and they've got a stacked. SEMO has a stacked defense. That's definitely going to be the strongest side of the ball. Um, if Kansas State makes a mistake and comes out flat for the first game, overlooks a little bit, thinking past, thinking this is just going to be a practice, more of just a scrimmage against the JV. Uh, ask Michigan what happens when you overlook your opponent and they come in and slap you in the face. So I mean that could be it. That I think that's going to be an interesting game, and also it's going to be a great gauge of just exactly how good SEMO is. I think how they can perform against um, equal and better talent because if they do what I expect and perform up to the caliber of team that I expect them to perform to this year, um, they're they could make a deep run in the FCS in the playoffs, um, and they're going to play more talented teams. Saying uh, North Dakota State, and South Dakota State, for example, they're going to play those. So I think really, even though it is the first game, it's going to be interesting to see how they've come together, how they perform in that first game, and how they do. I don't want to say against superior talent, but hey, let's call it what it is. Kansas State is superior talent. It's an FBS school, but yeah, I think if they play competitively, that's gonna go a long way of um, kind of giving a good look at what SEMO is going to be. And the other one, here again, SEMO again. Uh, I'm because I'm really interested. I love rivalry games. I absolutely love rivalry games. And this season, SEMO's got to go to. They have to go to Southern. And last year, Southern came into SEMO and laid an egg, and Southern walked away the winner. So that one, I'm really going to be looking forward to. Um, and that's going to be kind of hard for me because being from Illinois, but also I've this season, uh, my fandom is going to be kind of focused in on Southern because we've got a boy that's uh, kind of near and dear to me because he can't. Blaine Halley come out of Olympia High School. Um, he's an offensive lineman, but his head coach is the son of my head coach, my high school head coach. So I'm really interested. I'm excited to see how he plays. But so I'm going to have a little bit of fandom in that game. You know, a little bit. Because I am kind of partial to Southern Illinois. That I really, uh, I really, really, really enjoy the head coach uh, at Southern. I uh, overall, um, I just really like the overall talent of SEMA. So that's going to be another game that I'm interested in. I really want to see. Well, there, I mean, there are several games that I really am looking forward to putting a highlight on to see. Um, another game I'm really looking forward to seeing towards the front 3 weeks of the schedule is Robert Morris and Youngstown State. Uh, because Youngstown State's coming in. Um, and I believe that every poll ought to have them ranked up higher. Some have him at 20, have them at just on the outside bubble. Others have them coming in at 20, 24, 25. I really believe that the Dakotas might want to look out because I think that the Ohio powerhouse is on its way back. And that would be exciting to see. Uh, I would really like to see Youngstown State come back to being a perennial power, and I believe they're headed in the right direction. I honestly do. But I'm interested to see just exactly how Robert Morris performs against somebody that a team of that caliber. Because that's another team that just really aggravates the heck out of me. Because the one team in the Big South that I'm familiar with that I have watched an awful lot of their um, film is RMU. Um, just because I guess I couldn't believe that they were that bad last season. You know, so I did. I wanted to go back and watch some tape. I didn't do a lot of breakdown on them, but I did watch some tape on them. Um, Unfortunately, to be very honest, they have a lot of improvement to do overall. Um, I mean, uh, no disrespect at all aimed aimed towards Coach Clark at RMU. But 0-11, uh, obviously, when you finish 0-11, you have there's a lot of work a lot of work to be done, a lot of work to do, especially when the season before um, you have a rather good season, not a winning season, but you have a 4-6 season overall. So to come back to that and lose every game, uh, I'm hoping Coach Clark down there can kind of you know uh, get the wagons in a circle and get them headed back in the right direction. Um, so I just want to see how overall RME performs against Youngstown State. Um, then again, like I said, in the first 3 weeks of the season, we talked there again, a rivalry in the making, I believe. But Lindenwood and Southeast Missouri, I I'm really looking forward to that, because if there's a coach that has impressed me the most in the OVC, um, it's been uh, Jed Scott. I'm sorry, Jed, uh, but Jed Stuggert at Lindenwood. I think that he has proved that he is one of the premier coaches in not only the OVC Big South Association this season, but I think he's one of the better coaches in the nation. Um, I I was just really impressed with uh, the composure of Linwood all season last year. Uh, it was their first season in D1 play, and they ended up 7-3 overall. Their 3 losses were conference losses, granted, but they didn't get blown out by any means. Um, their loss, the only loss that was really one-sided, in my opinion, uh, was the Southeast Missouri game. Um, they played UTM. UTM come out, 56-26. Uh, I kind of thought that was, I don't know, it was the third game of the season for Lindenwood. I think they just kind of ran into a talent barrier there right off the bat. Um, but those were the only 2 games that were really uh, a wide separation in score. And I think that gap will kind of close this season. They beat Eastern Illinois last season in overtime. Um, they lost by 1 point to Tennessee Tech. I think, and that's the thing I think with this association, as I said, I really honestly think outside of the top 3, SEMO, UTM, and Gardner Webb, when you get to that 4th team, down to about the 7th team, 8th team in there, I really think you got a jam. There's a log jam there as far as the talent. I believe the talent right in that gap in that space is almost impossible to predict. because any one of those teams can come out of there as the number 4 team. Any one of those teams can beat any one of those teams. And when those teams play, those are going to be games that I'm going to really look at it too, as far as uh, where my focus is going to be on the game of the week. Uh, but that's going to be one of the things I'm going to be really looking at is the competition in those games. I'm going to highlight. There's going to be games in there I'm going to highlight. And right now it's too early to tell what games I will highlight. Until you start seeing that competition. Now, after you see the first couple of weeks, you're going to get a good gauge of what teams you really want to go see. What I want, see where that center of the division is going to be talent wise. Yes, one more game that I'm really excited for because I love it, and I'm hoping some way they can manage a way to keep it in existence. And that's Eastern Illinois and Illinois State. One of the oldest rivalries in the nation. Uh, and there's a lot of history there because Coach Spack at ISU was an assistant coach for Bob Spoo at Eastern Illinois, and he was one of had Coach Wilkerson's mentors. He coached at Eastern when Coach Wilkerson played at Eastern. So that there's a little bit of a backstory in that rivalry. But from the area that I live in, for me, that's always been one of my most anticipated rivals. Illinois, the University of Illinois has rivalry between Illinois and Northwestern. This season, that rivalry, you don't even want to discuss that and that whole catastrophe that's going on with Northwestern and their program. But as far as interstate rivalries, that's one of the best. And where I live, an hour north eastern and about an hour south of Illinois State. So that's one that I really look forward to. Another thing too is there's a lot of local kids end up maybe not playing football at Eastern or Illinois State, but in other sports. There's an awful lot of student athletes from this area that end up at those schools. So that's always like I said, every year it's one of my favorite rivalries, and it's worth it. I'm hoping, I hope, I'll be able to attend that rivalry game this season. It'll be at Eastern this year. And I really do. I really hope I can make it down there to watch it. I was able to make it to Bloomington last season and watch Illinois State and Bloomington play. So I'm really excited about that one. And then again, I guess really there's a lot of other there's several other games, but those are the ones that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, you covered most of them for me. I'm really looking forward to Lindenwood, Southeast Missouri. I do think that's a rivalry in the making. I'm excited for a lot of the non-conference games for the OVC Big South. They have a lot of opportunities to really show their might on the national stage. I know Bryant's got Princeton this year. And also as well, I saw that UT Martin has Samford at the end of the season. That could be a great statement for them if it comes down to it, for them to make a statement for an at-large bid. Also, too, Charleston Southern has the opportunity not just play William and Mary, but host them in Charleston. So we'll see if the Buccaneers fans show out in North Charleston. That one should be a fun environment out there. So those are just a few I'm looking forward to at the FBS level. I'm looking forward to Robert Morris, Youngstown State as well. I think that's a good one as well too, just to see how much the Colonials have improved, but also too just looking at the St. Francis game as well. I wouldn't sell the St. Francis game short. Former rivals in the NEC and a playoff team last year. As St. Francis almost ran through pretty effortlessly the Northeast Conference last year. So plenty of opportunities in non-conference for OVC schools to build a resume and show their might to the rest of the FCS and the national media like us. But that's all really I had to cover, Mike. Did you have anything final to add about the OVC? Anything else we should look for? Anywhere else we can find you?
Well, uh, no, not really. As far the OVC this season, uh, I'm really overall. I'm just I'm excited about the OVC. Um, Probably more than I have been in the past few years. I think that the OVC, um, and I'm speaking of the OVC. I realize not the Big South, um, but the OVC in general and the teams in general in the OVC. I believe over the past several seasons, the OVC has really been looked down on as an inferior conference. Looking at some of the players coming in, and I've rattled long enough about things and probably kind of and went over, but um, the talent level being recruited and coming in this season, and for the 24 recruiting cycle overall throughout the OVC, um, I believe it's on the talent levels on an upward trend. And I think they're getting stronger. And I think they're competent. They're going to compete with teams outside of the conference more than they have in the past. Uh, I'm not. I don't think. I still think, uh, even with recent success of CMO and what I expect out of CMO this season, um, I don't think anyone can deny that UTM and Coach Simpson is probably the cream of the crop in the OVC with the overall success uh, of the last oh since the COVID debacle, since the COVID year. I believe the UTM has probably been the more talented team throughout. Um, CMO has really done a great job of recruiting and putting together a very nice program and building uh, through the past few years. So I'm really, those two teams there, they stand out. I honestly do believe that they're um, just ahead above everybody else. Gardner Webb is right on that. They're right on a bubble. They're on a very fine line. I know in the coaches poll they picked them to finish second and UTM to finish third. You know, well, I wouldn't be me if I didn't disagree with something. and I really don't see that. I think Gardner Webb is probably the third best team. Um, they have Tennessee Tech picked in fourth, and Tennessee State picked in fifth. Um, I don't really want to burst anybody, but I can see Bryant being right there. I really do. I really like Bryant's quarterback, Zach Ekus. I really do like him. I think he's going to be right in contention with the Walter Payton Award as well. So I mean, there I'm really excited about the OVC. I'm going to single out the OVC. I'm really excited to see how they improve, especially with uh, the association and consolidation with the Big South, because I think, like you said earlier, you're bringing in comparable talent. I believe the competition level, I believe, is going to be really good. Um, the I guess before I close out, the one big thing is I really want to see good football this fall out of all. I don't want to because I don't want to see a whole bunch of sloppy play and flags thrown for this and flag. It is really hard to promote a conference when a majority of the teams in the conference, um, you can't stand to watch the games because they're flag ridden or turnover ridden. And I've watched several games that are just uh, neither side can hold on to the ball, or or one side just one when the competition's not there, when it's a one-sided game. And that's why I think that when I keep looking at this schedule and I keep looking at the teams in the association, I honestly do believe what I said is I believe that there's going to be some really good football play. Uh, I really do. That's pretty much all I have. Um, I think one another thing I'd like to say is I'm not going to go through the list, but there were several players out of the association that got um, placed on national watch lists. So I think that bodes well for the association. I think that gives it a little bit of respectability there. Um, I think that uh, it's going to be interesting at the end of the season to see how this all shapes. But I I would jump for joy if in the inaugural season they had an automatic qualifier and an at large. If that would happen, I I really think that is something that would put an awful lot of respectability back, and this association would gain an awful lot of respectability. Uh, and I'm going to be really interested to see how Western Illinois performs this season in the Missouri Valley. Kind of to see where they're going to shape up coming into the OVC next season. We'll get a good gauge of just exactly where they're going to how they're going to compete in the OVC, and I think that's going to be interesting. Um, is there anything else because I've ran my mouth probably uh, an hour longer than I should have, and I hope everybody understands that once we get to talking about the OVC and now the association with the Big South, um, and we get to talking about football in general, uh, I get pretty excited. That's just the the old school newspaper and radio in me. Uh, just an old school football fan. Uh, because I do. I really get excited about the season. Um, and this season, as of right now, uh, about the only place, about the only place that you'll be able to catch me that I know of right now um, will be right here as far as the podcast goes. Um, I know I'm saying golf names, but I don't have any. I don't have anything on my agenda right now as far as any other podcast. I have had a couple talk to me a little bit in just roundabout conversation. Of course, um, I'd appreciate people checking out my articles in um, Redshirt Sports, um, and follow me on Twitter at Terril Mike, uh, and give me some feedback about my articles. Let me know what they think. Hopefully no one ever agrees with me. I want to know just exactly what they disagree in. And if they see and hear things that I need to know, um, you know, and have stories or backgrounds of things that we can cover. What happened here? Oh, okay. Uh, all of a sudden, my screen just went black. I apologize. But if anybody has any stories or any ideas of um, material that they would like me to look into and discuss, get the shoot them out. DM is always open, and leave me a message on Twitter. Um, you can find me on Facebook. You can pretty much find me just about anywhere you want to. Another thing that I just kind of wanted to touch on, Omar, do you think we should maybe possibly tell everybody who we have kind of lined up as a guest coming up?
I mean, until the deal's sealed, I don't want to give anything away. So
Well, good, because that just kind of keeps everybody wondering who we've got coming. Let's put it this way. It's in the works to have somebody on that I think everybody will be extremely interested in. And I really am interested to hear and see what we develop. Um, I guess follow me on Twitter, follow Omar on Twitter, and find out who this mystery is. Find out who this mystery guest is we're talking about, and we'll keep you updated.
absolutely. And I mean, this has been a pleasure. I've learned so much about the OVC and Big South, as I always do, Mike. But until next time, everyone, peace, love, and soul.
Out.